Welcome to the 700 Club. For today's top stories, let's head over to the CBN News Desk.
Thanks, Gordon. The East Coast is enjoying fine weather this Labor Day weekend, but parts of the West are suffering. Heavy rains turning the Nevada desert into mud and leaving tens of thousands stranded at the annual Burning Man Festival. Meanwhile, victims of Hurricane Idalia in the South are picking up the pieces after last week's destructive storm. Dale Hurd is on this story.
This was the scene at Cape Cod this weekend as vacationers enjoyed some fine late summer weather. But out west, heavy rains and flooding have made a mess of weekend plans.
Oh my gosh, stop! What are you doing?
A bus rolled through waist-high water in Las Vegas, where monsoonal rains and storms led to flash flooding. In northwestern Nevada, flooding and mud from torrential rains have left tens of thousands of people stranded at the Burning Man Festival. Attendees are being advised to conserve food, water, and fuel.
They shut the water down. I'm walking around helping pull power cables out of the ground.
One person is reported dead. Music star Diplo posted this video to his social media account saying he and comedian Chris Rock walked 5 miles in the mud before being picked up by a fan. The nation's midsection is seeing temperatures into the 90s, and South Dakota and Minnesota could see triple digits as the heat moves east. Meanwhile, as we approach the peak of the hurricane season, tropical threats are brewing in the Atlantic, but none pose an immediate threat to the U.S. President Biden arrived in Florida Saturday, taking an aerial tour of some of the devastation left behind by Hurricane Idalia.
As I told your governor, if there's anything your state needs, I'm ready to mobilize that support. Your nation has your back, and we'll be with you until the job is done.
Biden did not tour the damage with Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who said such a meeting could hinder disaster response efforts. Biden said DeSantis had been helpful.
He may have had other reasons, but he did help us plan this. He sat with FEMA and decided where we should go.
Operation Blessing is continuing its work in Florida, helping the victims of Idalia. Volunteers gathered at Christian Center Church in Homosassa for training and prayer.
Help her get through this horrible situation that she's been through, Lord.
Operation Blessing volunteers helped the Mandela family clean up the damage to their home and salvage possessions. 12-year-old Logan told us it has restored his faith in God.
If I could say anything to the volunteers, it'd be thank you so much. You guys are really a true blessing from God. Having Operation Blessing in the church here, it really boosted my faith. It really made me think that, yes, there is a God that's here to help us.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And you can learn more about Operation Blessing's work and how to help by visiting ob.org. Americans are traveling in record numbers this Labor Day weekend, higher than pre-pandemic levels. Nearly 100 million taking to the roads and the air to squeeze the most out of the final days of summer. TSA expecting to screen more than 14 million travelers at America's airports by the time it's all done. That is up more than 10% from last year. Despite bad weather in some parts of the country, there were few reports of travel delays.
This is the last weekend of summer, so we are expecting full flights across the board.
It's been smooth. Yeah, it's just always busy.
The nation's highways also packed today as drivers return from their holiday destinations. Some Americans had their summer plans disrupted this year in a government backlog of passport applications. A post-pandemic travel surge created a bureaucratic logjam that extended wait times by a month or more. As Gary Lane reports, they're working hard to get back on track.
With a pandemic emergency over, millions of Americans are booking travel outside the country and applying for passports. Delayed processing times, however, are forcing many to cancel or delay their travel plans.
It's pretty bad. I mean, I've got friends, I've even had a family member, that sent in their passport renewal application, for example, in the spring. And it got to be midsummer, and they still hadn't gotten and heard anything.
That includes Miranda Richter, who planned to take her family on a June trip to Italy and Croatia. Although she applied for their passports 3 months before, a rejected photo prevented her from receiving the passports in time, forcing her to cancel.
Just complete sadness and disappointment. I realized that I am just one of hundreds of people who are in this situation.
So why the backlog? Virginia Senator Mark Warner serves on the Finance Committee overseeing customs and international trade. He explains everything changed when the COVID emergency ended in May. Americans wanted to travel, and new passport and renewal applications skyrocketed from a low of 11 million during the pandemic to 25 million this year. That rush meant wait times went from about 8 weeks to 13. Before COVID, travelers wanting an expedited passport could get one within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, the wait time is up to 9 weeks.
So the perfect storm of people wanting to travel, the downturn during COVID, and the hiring freezes that didn't allow new people to be brought on has created a real challenge.
State Department employees are working weekends and nights to ease the strain, processing 400,000 applications per week. They're even holding summer passport fairs, including one in Austin, Texas, which reached capacity in minutes. So what else needs to be done to get those passport processing times back down to previous levels? Warner says more employees are needed to work the phones, and he urges people to be patient. Processing times are expected to improve by early 2024.
By around Christmas time, they'll have a couple of things happen. We've gotten through the backlog. There will be a new online system where you could renew at least your passport online.
And that could mean shorter wait times. Also, people will be allowed to apply at passport offices without making an appointment. As for those short-term mission trips planned by churches and Christian organizations for the summer months, in a statement to CBN News, the Southern Baptist International Mission Board said, quote, "Thankfully, due to processes which allow plenty of time for travel-related necessities, we've not seen a major impact on short or long-term mission endeavors related to our organization." In other words, try to plan further ahead. In the meantime, check the expiration date on your passport. And whether you're renewing or applying for the first time, allow at least 3 months, not weeks, for processing before that planned trip outside the USA. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Want to turn now to the war in Ukraine. President Zelensky announcing he's replacing the country's defense minister. Zelensky noted Oleksiy Reznikov served more than 550 days of full-scale war, but says new approaches are needed. This comes less than a month after he fired several military officials, citing allegations of corruption. There are also reports the U.S. is planning to send a new weapon to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia. The latest aid package is said to contain replacement for depleted rounds of uranium, along with Abrams tanks. The rounds are capable of piercing the thick armor of Russian tanks. Advanced weapon systems can make a difference in warfare. That is why the nations are ramping up their use of artificial intelligence to build and deploy such weapons. Recently, experts briefed U.S. lawmakers on AI's capabilities and best practices on the battlefield. CBN's Brody Carter reports.
The country that is able to most rapidly and effectively integrate new technology into warfighting wins.
Founder and CEO of Scale AI, Alex Wang, says the U.S. is already behind in the artificial intelligence race.
China's investing the full power of its industrial base for AI. This year, they're on track to spend roughly 3 times the U.S. government on AI.
And he should know because the Pentagon is a major customer. It awarded his company, Scale AI, a $250 million contract to help the U.S. military develop and deploy AI technology, including a decision-making tool called Donovan and robotic combat vehicles.
Intelligence algorithms have made data significantly more valuable than they have in the past. Everyone within the DoD needs to understand that data is actually the ammunition in an AI war.
The Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office is a relatively new defense branch responsible for training artificial intelligence models, developing new military capabilities, and conducting threat analysis while making decisions, including the taking of human life.
It's certainly true that most of the exquisite capabilities that the DoD looks to build are likely to be developed at the secret or top secret level.
And without that development, experts agree the U.S. risks losing global influence, tech leadership, and democracy to strategic adversaries, including China.
And it's really important that your government and industry work together to realize those promises and to mitigate those threats.
as lawmakers work to bolster the military's artificial intelligence.
So this is a genie that can't be put back in the bottle.
Others warn average Americans need to prepare for a changed workforce.
And what's interesting about AI is that the jobs it is going to replace are not factory workers and industrial workers as much as white-collar workers. And so we need to start thinking about what impact will that have on our society, and what are these new jobs that might be created as a result of this.
While there are still many unknowns surrounding AI, Gordon Lawson, CEO of the cybersecurity company Concealed, tells CBN's Faith Nation that disinformation is his chief concern.
Just think about someone hijacking a major news network and talking about an event and people not being able to tell the difference. I think that is really the bigger concern than a Terminator-type scenario or machines taking over. And I think if we had potentially a foreign adversary using one of our senior officials and putting out false information, that could quickly move to a kinetic conflict, a shooting war, if you will.
Education is key because some lawmakers admittedly don't even know what Twitter does, let alone the capabilities of artificial intelligence. For those making laws to govern AI, the key is quickly implementing this technology while also keeping it controlled as the U.S. fights to keep up with China. Brody Carter, CBN News.